sergeants or other officers to nominate somebody that did something the past month, and he actually got 2 nominations from 2 separate sergeants, so that tells you what a great job he's doing. So there are 2 incidents on this. On February 25th, officers responded to a report of an aggravated assault in the Walmart parking lot. The suspect approached a vehicle where the victim was seated in the driver's seat and brandished a knife, ordering the victim to exit the vehicle. The victim quickly locked the doors, and the suspect attempted to open the doors while yelling and demanding the victim get out. When the suspect was unable to gain entry and the victim refused to comply, the suspect fled the area. Officer Cadwallader responded quickly to the scene, ensured the victim was safe, uninjured, and immediately broadcast the suspect's description to other officers. He then began checking the surrounding area and located the suspect on a nearby street, where he safely took him into custody. A folding knife was recovered from the suspect and identified as the weapon used during the assault. The victim later positively identified the suspect, who was subsequently booked into jail on felony charges. Officer Cadwallader's quick response, attention to detail, and decisive actions were instrumental in the successful resolution of this case. In a separate incident, he responded to a residential burglary where property had been stolen from inside the home. The victim identified a possible suspect, and he immediately began following the investigative leads. During a neighborhood canvass, he located ring camera footage showing the SUV matching the suspect's vehicle driving down the otherwise quiet, dead-end street near the time of the burglary. He contacted the suspect, who denied being in the area at the time. Continuing his investigation, he utilized UPD's Vigilant License Plate Reader system, which confirmed the suspect's vehicle had been in the area during the relevant time frame. He then authored and obtained a search warrant for the suspect's cellular phone records, which further placed the suspect near the scene at the time of the crime. When the suspect was contacted again, they declined to provide additional statements. However, through the combination of ring camera footage, license plate reader data, and cellular phone records obtained through a lawful warrant, he was able to establish probable cause to file criminal charges. So this is really going above and beyond for a patrol officer, because usually these type of cases are turned over to detectives, but he took it upon himself to take the initiative and follow up on this case and make an arrest. His initiative, persistence, and attention to detail in these cases demonstrate a strong commitment to thorough investigative work into the safety of Millcreek community. His consistent professionalism and dedication to serving others make him a highly deserving of recognition as Officer of the Month.
Good work.
Great job.
That is good police work. And I'm so glad we have you in our community, that you're following through, you're making sure that the victims are taken care of, but also that the perpetrators are caught and brought to justice. And thank you for going above and beyond and taking care of our residents.
It's my pleasure.
We'd like to get a photo.
Yeah, come on. Sweet. We can be the paparazzi. You want to be in it?
Sure.
Well, depend. How serious is the girl? You know. Okay. All right. We don't need to talk about that. I'll do one this way in case it's for the gram. Okay.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate it. Awesome.
Great news. Hey, let me take a picture of your certificate. Oh, okay. Yeah, thanks.
I always love hearing about the great work our police force is doing here in Millcreek. Okay, we will now turn the time over for public comment. Anyone who is present in council chambers may come forward and use the microphone. Please state your name.
Hello, again, Andrei Tarasov. I'm here again because after the last meeting comment, my clinic was inspected by Doppel, and because of the city complaint, I want to remind the city that Utah passed HB 58 last year, specifically saying that it is unprofessional conduct for city inspectors to retaliate against citizens. I think I'll just leave it there for now. I feel like I'll be here in the next meeting too. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else present? Is there anyone online, Elise? Okay, then we will close public comment and turn the time over now for item 2.1 to our Finance Director, Lisa Dudley.
Thank you. Apologize for that delay. These are the third, these comprise the third budget amendment for this fiscal year. And we'll begin with the general fund and the revenues that are affected. This is, you see several of the different various types of tax revenue based on projections now that 3/4 of the year are have passed. We can see which tax revenue is coming in maybe above or below, and try to true them up. For instance, the P2 transit tax, which is the fifth line item number 3137, that is something new. We did collect a tiny little bit the last quarter of the previous fiscal year, but this is the first year of collection of that tax. Our telecom license fees, the municipal telecom tax, this is our first year for that as well, and I think we just need a bit more history for those two taxes to get our budget to be more reasonable. We have the second line from the bottom. This is the insurance payment we've received recently from the flood damage. We received that from the Utah Local Governments Trust. So this is the revenue, and of course the last line there, the budgetary use of fund balance, is just the balancing number for the aggregate of the revenue and expenditure lines. These are the expenditure lines, and there's a couple of pages. I've saved the last few slides we'll go through for the general fund. It will show you all of the line item adjustments within each department. These that I'm showing you now, I'm going to go back. You can see the revenue change was an increase of $248,000, and the total of these expenditures is $248,000. So again, our budget is in balance. If we drop down to the facilities department, just below the middle of the page, you can see maintenance, buildings and ground. You can see an increase of $200,000. That is the most part from the flood damage, and you can see that's offset by the check we received from the insurance claim. We also have just a few things. One department may have needed help and didn't have enough to move within their own department, so we've been able to find some lines that were going to be under budget that we could help other departments with. So again, the expenditures total the revenues, and so these are the budget amendments for the general fund that would require the budget to be presented at a public hearing. The next few, which are all reclasses within department, which means one line may be up and another is asking to have the budget just shifted to a different line item. The changes between each department total 0. And these are things that, according to state code, your budget officer can move without a public hearing, but we've continued to present them to the council just in the spirit of transparency as well. Again, budgets are just estimates, so as we move through the year, and our departments are very good to manage, their line items, and maybe something needs to be raised while another line, they can forego buying something this year to make that balance. So department by department through the general fund, those that had lines that needed adjustments, again, all of these total 0 change for the overall budget. Then we move through the other funds of the city. And even though the CRA, this will be presented to the CRA later on, because these are blended component units of the city, they also are part of the city budget. And we had, excuse me, had received our first distribution of tax increment in December. We have not received the year-end settlement yet, so there will be at least another budget amendment for all of the CRAs before the end of the year, once we get that year-end settlement from the county. So this is the city center, Millcreek Center CRA, and this is this holds the bond proceeds, the bond issue from last summer. So you can see we budgeted for that before last year, before the bond transaction was finalized, and so there's some changes to that amount based on the actual bond transactions. And then on the expenditures, we have the cost of issuance and other bond-related transactions, and we have the largest sum, the last line there, transferring the bond proceeds to the actual project department, project fund. This is West Mill Creek. This is our longest standing CRA, the one that has brings in the most tax increment, just because it's been in existence longer and the projects are more established. And this is just interest earnings based on the year-to-date actual.
How old is that CRA? I mean, it predates the city by a
Yes,
few
it
years.
does. Mike,
Do you know?
I bet Mike can look that up really quickly and tell
curious
us
if you
that
knew.
story.
Isn't it like at least 12 years old?
Yeah.
I want to say it's like, oh, longer than
2015?
2015.
I think it's older, isn't it older than that?
I know it happened just shortly
Because
before
that
we
was just-
incorporated.
2012.
City,
2012.
The
2012.
20-year project area began in 2012, and then during COVID, the legislature allowed us to add 2 more years to it.
So it goes to
2034. Yep.
what's the Olympics?
Okay, so this is just recognizing an increase in interest income based on the year-to-date actual. Now, this fund, which is the MedTech CRA, the tax increment was triggered in tax year 2025. So this is the first year that the CRA and the city would have recognized tax increment transactions. In the MedTech CRA, again, this was the first payment of tax increment that comes in December. March 31st or the end of March is when the county has those reconciliations done, and we will receive a report that we can then bring back sometime in April to true those numbers up. Each of the CRA project areas have part of their budget is allocated for administrative expenses and part of their budget for housing. And we have set up an aggregate housing fund to take all of those requirements for housing and put them into this special housing fund so that that money is not utilized for something other than what it's restricted for, and we can get a bigger sense of, from all the different project areas, here is our housing money. So this transaction, or this budget amendment, is showing you from the increased budgets from what we've received so far, the percentage that should then be transferred to the housing fund. The next fund of the city, also a special revenue fund, and this will be presented to the Community Foundation Board later tonight, is just small budget amendments for recognizing additional ZAP grant, and then the UTA bus pass program through the Promise Department. And in the stormwater utility, also based on the interest earnings, this is just a budget amendment with a couple of small departmental operational expenditures that needed small adjustments as well. Also, we have a few changes in the recreation fees. For the fee schedule, we typically just present any changes the departments may request along with our budget amendment. And these all relate to recreation, room rentals. These were in your packet. I don't know if you had a chance to look at them, but just kind of, I think, refining definitions of some discounts, how those are given. Also, the top two lines are, it's eliminating a 2-hour minimum amount for these hourly charges. So what I presented so far was included in your packet. I do have one other small exhibit to present that, and I have would you pass these out? A substitute, you just need this top one. A substitute ordinance that would include Exhibit B as well. And this was discovered after the budget worksheet was done. But yet, if we can sneak it in here, this would be nice, because the farmers markets that will begin again, as this coming up season, and they needed a shift in their budget from the recreation department to the public markets in order to get the markets launched for this year. So what Francis handed out was a substitute resolution that would just include Exhibit B here, as well as Exhibit A that was included in your packet. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Council, I might call your attention to that fee schedule, is what I had talked about.
Thank you.
And John, I apologize. I actually thought we were voting on it, that it wasn't a first read. So I was just clarifying that we're going to not vote on something we haven't seen yet.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? No questions for Lisa? Okay, so do we have a motion to open public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing, considering amending the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget.
I'll second.
Motion by Tom, seconded by Sylvia. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the public hearing is open. Is there any members of the public who would like to address us on this topic? Is there anyone online, Elise? No? Okay. Seeing no.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Tom, seconded by Bev. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The public-
Motion, oh, sorry.
Okay, the hearing is closed.
Motion to approve ordinance 26-13, amending the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget as set forth in the attached Exhibit A and Exhibit B.
Second.
Okay, motion by Tom, seconded by Bev. Roll call vote.
Councilmember DeSirant,
Aye.
Councilmember Weepy,
Aye.
Councilmember Handy, Councilmember Catton,
Aye.
Mayor Jackson.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. All right. Public hearing to consider monetary contributions. So is this you, Mr. Winder?
Yes,
or-
I'm happy to speak to this. So each year we have a scholarship program, if you recall from the last 2 years. Typically, one boy, one girl, but not necessarily for each of the 4 high schools. So we have Cottonwood High School, Olympus High School, Skyline High School, and the International Charter School, which is in all 4, which are either in our city boundaries or which our city students are boundaried to. And it's a wonderful thing we do each spring. Uniquely this year, we've renamed those the Silvestrini Scholars in honor of our previous mayor. And the application period for those is actually, assuming the vote tonight goes well, the application period opens up pretty soon with, I think, April 10th is the closing day. So graduating high school seniors from any of those 4 schools could apply through our Promise program. But because it is money, public money being dispersed to private individuals, it does require a public hearing, and it did have the 1082 study as required.
So we felt it was appropriate to rename these the Silvestrini Scholars Scholarship because Mayor Silvestrini was so instrumental in our Promise program. That was a passion project of his, and we felt, you know, it's kind of hard to honor your first mayor without big statues or, you know, streets. He didn't want a street named after him. Silvestrini is too difficult. So, we felt this was a good way to just both honor his commitment to the Promise program and those students who are deserving of this, and just have his name and legacy live on through our city. So
I might add, Mayor, that this started out at Olympus. They had Holiday City would kick in $1,000 for a boy and $1,000 for a girl, graduating seniors, and challenged us to match it, which we did. But a few years ago, this mayor and council said, hey, if we're going to do that for Olympus, let's do it for the others too. And it's been a wonderful program. I think this is our 4th year doing this, 3rd or 4th. Yeah.
Well, because I remember we did it at our old city hall first, so.
True. So
It's at least
4 or 5
years.
maybe.
Yeah, 4 or 5. Yeah. So can I have a motion to open public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
You two are on a roll. Motion by Tom, seconded by Bev. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is open. Is there anyone present who would like to address the council on this issue? Okay, see no one. Is there anyone present online? No. Okay. Motion to close our public hearing?
So moved. So moved.
Second.
Motion by Sylvia, seconded by Bev. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The public hearing is closed. So I love this because I think there are so many students who just need that little extra help, whether it's purchasing books or whatever it is. When you get into college, there's always expenses that you haven't anticipated that can sometimes be a real burden on some families and students. So this is a good way to help some of those really deserving students in our city and to just give them that extra help in getting to college.
And the criteria, just for those listening's information, is it's not solely on academic excellence. It's also on what challenges they've overcome in their life to get there. And so we end up having some pretty inspiring stories. And of course, that's what the Promise program is about, is lifting all boats. And this is a good way to encourage that along.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Okay, any discussion? Nope. Okay. So
I move we approve ordinance 26-11 approving monetary contribution of up to $8,000 for high school scholarships.
Second.
motion by Sylvia, seconded by Nicole. Roll call.
Councilmember Catton.
Aye.
Councilmember Handy.
Aye.
Mayor Jackson.
Aye.
Councilmember Weepy.
Aye.
Councilmember Desirant.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. We will now have a public hearing to consider monetary contribution of up to $5,000 to the East Millcreek Community Council. Are you addressing that one?
Yep.
Mr. Winder?
Historically, we've given some money to our community councils when they've asked for it for different purposes. I applaud the East Millcreek Community Council. They don't hoard their money. They actually use it. They give us a very specific budget on what they're using it for. It's a modest amount of $5,000, but they have budgeted for that. Any permits they may have, a little bit for office supplies. They do have insurance, and as the city, if you recall from the conversations a few months ago when we were required by the state to formally decouple, we said we'd still help with that, and so there's some costs in there for insurance. East Millcreek Community Council is also amazing to step up and help with the 4th of July events, UPD and UFA meals from time to time, Mill Freaks, and so they put together a good budget and they stick with that each year. So staff felt it was responsible. The 1082 study gave it thumbs up, and we're pleased to have this for your consideration tonight.
Excellent. Is there, I see members of the East Millcreek Community Council here. Would either of you like to come address the council, or are you happy to stay on the back row? Okay. Okay. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Bev, seconded by Sylvia. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, public hearing is open. Is there anyone present in council who would like to address the council on this topic? Okay, seeing none. Anyone present online? Okay, motion to close public.
So moved.
Well, I didn't make it. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
Bev?
Seconded.
Yes.
A motion by Bev, seconded by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, hearing is closed.
Okay.
And
Mayor,
I'll
I'd
move-
like to make a motion to approve. Oh, sorry. Did you have a
No, no,
discussion?
go for it.
Motion to approve item 2.6, discussion and consideration of ordinance 26-12, approving a monetary contribution of up to $5,000 to the East Millcreek Community Council.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Bev, seconded by Tom. I'm so glad that you're continuing to be a part of our community and to contribute in all the wonderful ways that you have done for years and years and years. It means a lot to us as a city, so thank you.
Yes, I also just wanted to say thank you so much, Nancy. I've known you for a very long time, and I'm grateful that you're a part of our community.
And looking forward to our 2026 events. Thank you.
So do you help with the Easter egg hunt? Is that your first one, or is that entirely up to the Lions? You haven't done that one? Okay, so you don't have to worry quite so soon.
Okay.
That's good. Okay, I have a motion by Bev, seconded by Tom. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Weepy.
Aye.
Councilmember Desirant.
Aye.
Councilmember Handy.
Aye.
Councilmember Catton.
Aye.
Mayor Jackson.
Aye.
There's a bit more.
I would answer to that, but, okay. Moving on to item 3.1. This is Carlos. Turn the time over to you.
Thank you. This is an application that we saw on the last city council meeting, so I'm just gonna speed run through it. Basically, we have a rezone application at 1575 East Maple Avenue, which consists basically of the rezone of previously consolidated land that came from properties just north of this property. There have been a series of consolidating or basically boundary adjustments on this property. To the left is the first consolidation that happened in 2021. It's roughly about 4,000 square feet. To the right of this picture, just a little bit above that 1575 property, you have about 3,600 square feet of area that was, again, consolidated through a subdivision amendment into 1575 East. Basically, our code tells us that a lot must be contained within one zone. And so basically what happened is that we added or there was a consolidation of area to this lot that was under the R16. We're looking to actually rezone it to the R110, which is the zone that is found on 1575 East Millcreek Way. So this is basically just the gist of the application. We don't find any detrimental effects that are happening with the consolidation and the rezone. The use will remain the same as R110. Basically, some of the setbacks on that rear portion of the lot will, again, just follow the R110 code. Most of the sites will actually be considered side yards, and I just mentioned that because there were some questions that were asked throughout the process. Nonetheless, I did not get any comments after our previous meeting. Again, we have found no detrimental effects, and so staff does recommend to approve application file number CM26002 as presented. Therefore, I move that the City Council approves application CM26002 as presented. Let me know if you do have any questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Carlos? We've seen this a couple times, and you've been very thorough in explaining, which we appreciate that. No questions? Okay.
Then Mayor, I would move, well, I don't know, do we have anybody?
Doesn't need to be, it's not a public hearing.
Okay, yeah, good point. Then I would move that we approve ordinance 26-10, rezoning 0.17 acres of certain property located at approximately 1575 East Millcreek Way from the R16 zone to the R110 zone.
Second.
Motion by Tom, seconded by Nicole. Roll call vote?
Councilmember DeSirant,
Aye.
Councilmember Handy,
Aye.
Mayor Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Weepy,
Aye.
Councilmember Catton.
Aye.
Okay. It's passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carlos.
Okay. Item 3.2, Brad. Is Brad in here? Did we go faster than Brad anticipated? We can talk a little more.
He's here.
We know he's here.
We know he's here.
Well,
Nothing like running into a meeting.
yeah. No, good. I know, we've been we had time on our work meeting, so we covered all of our reports and things. We can't even do that right now. Okay.
I guess we could finish the calendaring of upcoming events.
Yes.
Historic
So
preservation.
the calendaring of upcoming events, we have, well, first, it's not on here, but we have the Transportation Utility Fee Open House on April 2nd from 5 to 7 here in the Community Forum. We have our Historic Preservation Commission meeting on the 9th. And then our next City Council meeting is on the 13th. Is that,
And our-
is that the date when we're having the combined meeting with the Planning Commission? Or what date are we doing that? Or we're also having
yes.
a tour to the Malihe Clinic.
Yeah, the work meeting will be the tour,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll grab something to eat after in between meetings like we do, and then the 7 o'clock is with the planning commission
Okay.
Okay.
to
And then
discuss
just
the.
the
Woodbury
two
Corner.
additional events that we have is the Doxy Derby
Yes.
happening this Saturday, 4 to 7. Did I say that time right? 4 to 6, 4 to 7.
No, it starts at 4.
4, and it kind of just goes on.
I thought it started earlier.
No, it starts at 4. What we are seeing is the calendar invite for the.
Staff set up.
Oh,
So
okay.
we've asked Community Life to send separate invitations to the council to let us know when we need to be there.
And then the East Mill Creek Easter egg hunt,
Yes.
9 a.m. There's a countdown.
The
Be on
4th.
time on the 4th at Evergreen Park. Forgot about the location.
How many years have they been doing that?
60?
A long time, which is impressive. That's fun. Okay, Brad, did you catch your breath?
Well, yeah. I
Sorry
was-
to startle you
sorry.
that way.
No, I was doing my Franklin Covey training. Just
Oh, good for you.
good for
put a
you.
plug in there. So
That's awesome.
it's enticing and intriguing. So thanks for being patient and waiting for me. I didn't realize you were moving through so fast. Are we ready to go?
We're ready,
okay.
if you are.
I'm ready.
Okay. 2 to 7.
This is an item I think that you're all, I think, somewhat familiar with, and I'll kind of go through the slides. You're welcome to answer or ask me any questions you might have along the way. I do have, just for clarity, the applicant on this is actually a 3-party applicant. It's a partnership between Millcreek City and Ensign Design and PEG Development. This is the property that's just right out the window here across the plaza, across the ice rink. This is an application to rezone the property into and include a development agreement. And there's also uniquely a zone condition, as I recall, that's on a little portion of the property. It's actually the property that is the WUNRF itself, the Upper East WUNRF. I'll kind of go into some details on some of this here. Again, this application, there's 5 parcels that are being assembled into 1.2 total acres. The rezone is from the commercial zone to the city center overlay zone, which includes a development agreement. Again, remove the existing condition, and then there's some terms of a development agreement that I want to discuss with you. One thing that's unique to to this CCAWS DA zone is it allows some exceptions, and I'll kind of go over those with you as well. If this is approved, there would be a subsequent site plan and a subdivision site plan, conditional use, whatever have you. For the most part, those would be administrative, however, and go likely just through the Planning Commission, with the exception of there's a possible right-of-way vacation and some things that may come back to you that you might see in small bits and pieces over the next month or two. Here's the property that I was talking about. Like I said, there's 5 parcels. It's the area just north of the Hamida Deeb's property that's being remodeled right out the window here. That's everything from Highland to the ice rink and south of Chambers to his property. This is the zoning that's currently on the property. It's already in the commercial zone. It already has an overlay zone, which is the commercial, the CCAWS. This is the land use map here that kind of shows the master plan for the area. I'll kind of go through these. I think you're kind of familiar with these as well. As you recall, for years, since Millcreek Incorporated, and likely a little bit before, shortly thereafter, Millcreek has contemplated a master plan for this area, city center master plan. And the area that we're talking about is probably one of the highest intensity portions of that area. I'm pulling from the Millcreek City Center plan, the Together plan that was done in 2019. There's some stuff I've highlighted in here that kind of pertains to the idea or the notion to have not only a high intense area, but also a hotel, retail on the main floor, some condos. There's also a parking structure, and the parking structure is kind of key in this application. Is the CCAWS DA zone only really allows for exceptions when there's a public interest or investment or aspect to the property or to the development. Again, here's kind of zooming in a little bit tighter from the high level, getting down to the lower levels of what this is. And the area they've got here on the right-hand side in red is the area. For those who may not know, the CCAWS zone was kind of split into 3 intensities. The middle one that's in this tan here, the Mill Center, was the higher intensity in the area just next to Chambers, or south of Chambers between Highland and 13th was the higher the intensity of that subzone or sub area. Again, kind of zooming in a little bit tighter, here's kind of a concept plan that was sort of evolved. I don't want to say this is the original version. It's not. It's sort of evolved over time. But this kind of shows our city hall right here, the rink, the building, the parking structure that's adjacent to us, the Boyer building up here, and a few other existing uses that are kind of along Highland, Tres Hombres, Crown Burger, to name a few, Kathmandu, and so on. This is the area we're talking about. It's kind of zooming in here. As part of that overall original plan, there was some discussions about, again, this being the more densest part of the city. I want to just kind of highlight that as far as height, and I want to highlight this because this came up in some of the earlier public outreach meetings we had with various committees and individuals through open houses and what have you. There's concern about the height, but again, the height was the highest. This area was envisioned always to be, from the beginning, since 2019, I shouldn't say the beginning, but early on, to be the higher intensity, higher stories. And there was also, as part of that plan, some view corridors that were kind of anticipated. I don't know that we're really holding to this exactly, but for the most part, there's some east-west, and then this kind of central green space that kind of cuts along the fault line. I just kind of want to maybe spend a little bit of time on the outreach process. This kind of started back in the last fall. We did a joint work session with the Planning Commission City Council, for those of you who are here and can recall that. Later in September, there was a preliminary presentation, and we received some feedback from 3 of the 4 community councils, all but Mount Olympus. The following month in October, we had a neighborhood meeting that included the surrounding business owners and property owners and general public. And then the photo you see here is actually from an open house. This was in February. It was part of a chat with the planner session we had, and there was multiple items that were coming up on the Planning Commission agenda that we held here in this room. and we had a dozen and a half, maybe 2 dozen people that showed up. And the architects that we've employed, I might just mention, are in the audience, Anthony and Lyman and Owen Blake were in attendance helping us with this presentation. And then lastly, more recently in February, late February, we had a planning commission public hearing. And I'll kind of go over some of the information that was brought up in at least the latter 2 or 3 of these meetings. Here's the proposal. Just kind of want to jump right into it. So this is a 6-story mixed-use commercial retail building, which includes a parking structure, hotel, and residential condominiums. There's a little over 12,000 square feet of commercial retail will be on the first floor. The Millcreek will control and manage the retail. This is the portion that's facing the common directly. It'll be just opposite of where we're sitting now, right along the upper Woonerf. Above that would sit a residential condominium complex that's owned by one of the partners, and they would manage that, own it. They'd be for ownership. They're a high-end luxury condo. They're not affordable in any stretch of the imagination. Again, there's 25 of those, and then what you'll see back behind, or in the middle of this building, is a parking structure, and it's concealed. In other words, it's completely wrapped with building facade. The side that's along Highland Drive and Chambers will be a hotel comprising of 108 bedrooms approximately. And then there will be some rooftop amenities. Will include some pool, hot tub, whatever have you. And then there's going to be some improvements along Highland Drive to complete the streets as well as Chambers. And then, of course, the building will face the Millcreek Common as well. That's kind of challenging, counselors, and as you know, being a 3-sided lot, actually kind of 4, because we're going to have a paseo, kind of a pathway that's going to run along the south side of the building. So it actually has 4 kind of interfacing sides. It's kind of it's challenging, and the architects can speak to this, as we've kind of really been picking their brains. They've been really creative in trying to get the grades to work and to get all these elevations to work, and even with the 3 partnerships, trying to get them all to work together. And we're not there yet, but we're really close on a lot of things, and I think we have really well-baked concepts for you to consider tonight as part of this rezone. Here's kind of just what the site conditions look like. I don't know if I need to go into details. You can look out the window here if you're not familiar with it already. I will just point out that there's a pork chop, as we call it, kind of a median in Chambers Avenue, that will get pulled out. And what this does is it allows Chambers to better align perpendicular to Highland Drive. The width will stay the same. You'll have the same lanes. You'll have the one going out and the 2 going out and the one coming off of Highland. But it just aligns better. And what that does is it's going to allow for the site to kind of shift up here on the radius on the upper corner, the northeast corner of the site is going to shift a little bit, and that gives it a little bit more room, as we're already using every square inch we can of the property. So that's something that will come to you later on. Will be an application to vacate and realign the right-of-way. This is kind of what it would look like if you're looking at it from the top down. There's a side view perspective of it. There's going to be a few on-street perpendicular parking stalls along Chamber. This is going to allow easy access into the hotel, which the entrance will be right here on the northeast corner, There's 2 entrances into the building. One will be off Chambers. It'll access a lower subterranean parking level. And there will also be an access coming off Highland between the site and what will become a future Salt Lake City gym. That'll allow vehicles and pedestrians to access a parking structure that's going to be accessed right here. And there's also a paseo that I alluded to earlier that allows pedestrians to walk really from Highland down through and connect to the Millcreek Common here. And then, as I mentioned, there's some retail on the lower side that's facing the common itself. This is a utility plan. I don't need to spend a lot of time on this other than just to point out that there's going to be some improvements to the upper east Woonerf. There's going to be some grease traps and whatnot that are going to be embedded into the ground. That's to allow for some restaurant potential on some of these units. They need to have those grease traps in that sewer line, but the sewer line is going to connect. It's going to cause the Woonerf to temporarily be disrupted and out of order. There's also an existing mechanical enclosure that's just directly east of the venture hub here that'll get removed and relocated down in this location. If you can see where I'm pointing with my cursor in the lower part. There's also a dumpster enclosure that sits about right here that'll also be added to that enclosure in this area. Because the building's coming up so tight up against the Wooner, it's imperative that we move some of this stuff, and really to give a good overall connectivity and interface with the common, and not have those mechanical enclosures, what have you, obstructing or impeding those ground level retail spaces to have their full potential, and as well as to synergize this facade. I'm going to go through these a little bit quick. This is the basement level. There's some storage immediately below the retail. That's one of those, the unit that's going to be on the corner of the Wooner, right by the Venture Hub, and is for the fine arts. They're moving out temporarily, and they'll move back into this location, but this basement level allows them to be able to build the frames. Then the upper floor is allocated primarily for showroom and retail. The others are just additional storage space. We've learned over time that that's critical to have these successful businesses here, is they want to be able to put their whatever below and use the main floor as to capitalize on that square footage on the upper level. This will also include the parking. Again, you come into the parking structure, and again, this portion of the parking structure is allocated primarily for the condos that would sit directly above the retail space. This is what the retail space will look here in pink. Again, this is going to be at grade with the Wooner on the east side. And then again, there's some parking back behind. Going through at the ground level or the next level above that, you'll have the condos that again that sit along above the retail, along the common, and then the hotel you can kind of see in this L shape with again the parking structure now being accessed from Highland on the south side here. And then the next 2 to 4 levels, this actually should be levels 2, 3, and 4. It's kind of a repeat of the same floor plan layout. And then the upper level, you can see the intensity kind of gets a little bit more with full retail, or excuse me, full hotel. And then there's the amenity space, include some outdoor eating, dining, bathrooms, pool, spa, barbecue area. I'll kind of get into some perspectives on what that looks like. And then the very roof part that sits kind of above this amenity space, it kind of sits down in the building, will be for mechanical and solar and whatever have you that sit up above on top of that. Here's kind of an elevation view of what this looks like. Again, the top is the east view. This is the portion looking from, sorry, I catch my breath. This is the part you look at from looking at from Highland Drive. The lower one's what you'd look at, what you'd view looking from the common. The top view here is the view looking at from Chambers, from north to south. And then again, here's the south view of the building. And this is the only portion of the building where a little bit of the parking structure is exposed right here in the middle. And you can kind of see the roof amenities. That's the south. That's the very south part. When I say kind of exposed, because it sits so far back off Highland and off the common, it's kind of hard to see unless you're directly in line with it or really looking for it. Here's some really cool renderings that the architect was good enough to put together for us. This is the view of what you don't see in the foreground here. My cursor is the Adventure Hub. It sits kind of in this area. It's kind of it's a little bit lighter color. But essentially, this is the Wooner coming off of Chambers, as Chambers kind of drops down pretty drastically, really. But this would be the fine arts space that kind of sits at a little bit of an angle to the corner. And then the other retail spaces kind of go down this side here along the common. And then you can see the entrance into the parking structure that goes subterranean. And then the hotel would be on the other side. Again, this is looking straight at it from really if you're in the Adventure Hub, looking at it with the floor to glass windows on the main floor to really enhance that experience from a pedestrian level with the balconies and whatever for the condos, again, that would be on this facade. This is the corner, if you're at the Millcreek Pizza House, more or less, looking at the building. The street in the foreground is the Upper East Wooner, and then behind this retaining wall, this landscape retaining wall, is the new parking lot for the again, the adjacent property owner. And again, you can kind of see the parking structure kind of behind the trees here. Again, kind of the same view, just a little bit different angle. This is the angle from Highland Drive. Again, this is how you'd enter the hotel with the on-street parking for immediate drop-off pickup. And then along Highland Drive, you have the first floor that pops out just a few feet away from the upper floors. And I want to talk about that just in small detail. If I could just pause for a minute and just speak to this. This is one of the things that originally, if you could see what this looked like, and if those of you who are here, if you can remember back in the day when this was presented to you at the joint work session meeting, this facade really kind of came all the way down. And it didn't have the articulation, the push, the up and down, and as much anyway. As a result of, I know we couldn't meet all the demands from all the community councils and all the different public, but this is one where we felt real strongly we had to at least find some way to give this a little bit of step back articulation. And as a result of listening to the various different comments that came up through the different community councils, this was one way that we were able to just really shove that building, that ground floor space forward. And it was really hard to do, but with the creative minds of Beecher Walker, they were able to rearrange what was originally just units, just standard kings and queen bedroom units on the ground floor here. They were able to take some of the space along Chamber and move it, what was originally the kitchen and the office and there's an exercise room. They moved it over to this side and created a space that now has kind of ground floor, floor to ceiling windows that kind of interfaces a little bit with Highland Drive. So if you can imagine walking down Highland Drive, it gives it kind of a street, some interaction, kind of a street edge. So you don't feel like you're just walking past bedrooms.
That really looks nice. It really does.
And that was a change that this has come about as a result of those meetings. Again, just another perspective. Here's the roof space, or at least a version of it, and you can kind of see how these amenities could look or anticipated. Again, here's kind of another view of that same rooftop amenity. Again, this is kind of looking at it from the south a little bit. The parking structure, you can kind of see down, or part of it is right below this. Again, a kind of another view of, again, of how that could look and how that could be arranged.
So the upper amenity is for the condos and the pool area is for the hotel, or are they all the hotel amenity?
It's a split. It's a split. There was talk about sharing the space, and it sounds like both users kind of want it separated.
Want their own space. So they
Yeah.
can see each other but not interact with each other.
I guess.
Okay.
And
Jump over the fence to get to the pool. I
and
don't
that-
know.
Well, there's some security issues, and the condo people don't necessarily
Want all
want the
guests
masses
in
from the
their
hotel.
pool.
That's why the parking lot's separate too.
The condo people don't have a pool.
No, they have a hot tub.
Oh,
That's kind of back in here,
yeah.
right there.
Okay.
So this is kind of a simple development agreement that we're proposing, because a lot of these uses and a lot of these things are already embedded into the zone, so we really don't need a whole lot of criteria in here. But this is really more, probably if nothing else, more for the partnership. We just kind of outlined some of the uses as far as the number of parking, number of units, both for the condos and the hotel, the square footage. And then there's some EV, some electric vehicles, charging stations that are scattered throughout. I didn't spend much time on the individual parking structure plans, but they're kind of scattered in there. And then there's some amenities. As far as parking access goes, the agreement, we don't have it here before you. We will eventually. But the idea is to, through possibly some easements and or agreement, to kind of bind all the parties to how we allocate the parking internally within the structure. There's also some ownership and maintenance agreements that we need to work through as well. We would eventually do a plat as part of this, and that would help kind of facilitate not only just the right-of-way vacation, the dedication needs to happen along the roads, but also the ownership and easements, and a number of other things that kind of would transpire with that plat to kind of make sure things are set up in a way that this can function efficiently. There's also some improvements both on-site, They're kind of just generic stuff that we normally would look at per our code. We want to make sure all parties are agreeing to them. Some things are not quite clear in the code, such as some of the street lights and some of the landscape planters and street furniture and other things that are kind of not only along the right of way, but along the paseo on the south side and what have you. What's probably a little bit more unique to this is because of the impact of this building, there's going to be some off-site improvements that need to kind of extend beyond the site. I mentioned the upper East Woonerf with some of the sewer and storm and whatnot there that are going to have to be kind of worked through. There's also some improvements to Highland Drive. And those improvements, they could be at the very minimum, some restriping. They could include just a little bit more than that. But as you know, the center turn lane kind of disappears where it should probably extend more. And anyway, there's some more details about how to make that function better. There was a traffic study that we did last fall with Fair and Pierce, and they made some recommendations on what improvements need to be done upon completion of this building, as well as some other improvements that need to eventually be put into place. Our plan is in 2030, 2032, somewhere in that time frame. We have a portion of the money now, but we're going to be improving Highland Drive in a much grander scale. And so the idea is to let's put in the minimum improvements we can now, so they're not spending money twice for something that's going to have a more comprehensive and a much larger reach in terms of the improvements along Highland Drive. So that's kind of where that's going. There's also some terms with respect to the building design, just the orientation materials and overall, just mass scale and layout. And then our sign code allows a variety of signage, but we wanted to put in here that in its essence, that the signage, particularly along the ground floor for the retail space, would closely match what we have on this building. So they kind of mirror each other. And it gives us as staff a little bit of discretion to kind of help match those two up, so there's a cohesive signage on both sides of the common. I think those are in terms of the development agreement. That's it. Now the big exception that we're asking for on this, and this is allowed by code, so long as there's a public aspect to this, which is the parking structure, is that step back. As I mentioned, this site interfaces on three sides, and to get that step back. As you go up, the idea is to step the building back. If essentially what it would do is create a pyramid with all three sides, because you'd be stepping back on different levels from different angles. We're meeting the step back for the most part, with the exception along, the big exception being along Highland Drive. And that step back, the way our code reads, is you can either do that in one big swoop and do a big 20-foot step back, or you can do it in a tier, like you see in the lower image here. That hotel, the step back is not going to have the 20-foot step back. It has like a 6 or 7 foot step back on this portion, the portion that I was emphasizing earlier. It doesn't have that full 20-foot or 10-foot combo. It just goes back, and that again is because to get the parking structure to work internally within the building and to be able to wrap it with any usable space, the site's just constrained such that you have to sacrifice somewhere in order to make that all work. And the step back seemed to be the logical place to where we could make that happen. So it does have a little bit of a step back, but just not to the full spectrum of what's allotted within our code. But again, the code was anticipated or written anticipation to allow for that because of the parking structure. And again, you can kind of see that. I just emphasize what I talked about earlier. We went through this
Brad.
parking table.
Brad,
Yes.
there are 200 spots in the parking garage, correct?
I think so, roughly.
And there's 110 units at Hyatt and 25 condos. So, I know this is shared parking. About how many spots does the common get as a whole? Does the city get?
More than half. Well, it's structured differently than what you think about.
Sure.
And can I pause on that?
Yeah,
We'll come back
absolutely.
to it.
This chart will actually help you with that, Council.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brad.
This is kind of in two parts. There's the estimates are on the left, and then the final parking supply recommendations are on the right. And it kind of splits it splits it down or allocates it by use. Now, this is what's recommended by Fair and Pierce, and it's because it's shared. It's hard to if you're just to assign the parking, it probably doesn't quite have enough. But because the way that the different uses offset from each other, it's ample parking.
This is similar to the Westerly parking lot we share next
Right.
door, where if we each had to build our own parking to meet the requirement, it would be a lot more spaces. But because you have some daytime, nighttime offset, it really does work out. You'll see the condos there. I'll let you take a quick breath, Brad. The condos there, 44, those are the basement stalls. And so those aren't shared with anybody. They have their private thing. That's why that's a solid 44 all the way across. But the rest of the uses are entirely shared. And so there aren't going to be any stalls that say hotel only or common only. It's all going to be fluid and shared. And because of that, Fair and Pierce says the parking site, it actually works very well. So even your worst case, highest peak scenario at night on the right, you can see 196. We're at, what are we, Owen, 208? 206. It goes a little up and down each day based on the massage of the drawings. But so we'll have 206 in there. So that's not only 10 more than the recommended there, but you can see that includes 50 overflow. That includes plenty for the hotel and even the restaurants. The hotel developers have told us that Uber and Lyft, they've changed their model so much that they really don't have that many people bringing cars to hotels like they used to. If someone's coming for a staycation or in the Mountain West, sure, then they would. But a lot of the business travelers coming in don't even have cars with them.
That makes
so
sense.
we're excited about this because we get desperately needed parking for the common, but we're also able to help with these condo and hotel and retail needs.
Thank you, guys. Thank you both. And I apologize. I had been wanting to ask that for the last couple of slides and didn't even look at this slide, which is
Well, your
parking
timing's
analysis.
right on. Yeah, your mind's in sync of as fast as I can talk and get to these slides. Does that answer your question on that? But yeah, as Mike just emphasized, the Uber Lyft industry has changed how hotels get parked. I think they were saying something at the last meeting of the Planning Commission. Maybe 30% of what they would have had decades ago, they're only using that parking because it's changed. They're only using 30% parking from what they normally would include within their hotels.
Yeah. Mike, I do wonder if maybe we should look at it, just keep it on the back of our mind, having, how we have those signs that kind of go up on the West Wooner for like no parking, farmer's market. If maybe we might need to do something like that in the future on major event days like the Doxy Derby or days like the 4th of July or whatever. I don't think that's something we have to worry too much about right now, but just as a thought, we might need to do that for the hotel, just because I want to make sure that we're being good neighbors to them.
Yep, the nice thing, that's a good suggestion, Councilman, and there'll be, sometimes you don't know what you don't know on these things, but the value of the suggestion you just made is that's easy and flexible and adaptable. So I'm sure there'll be things like that we end up needing to do as we ebb and flow. The good news is that's 208 in addition to the 445 here, and we're starting to, the more of those you add and the more flux there is, the better. We even talked about how behind the medical building we have 65 stalls that are open in the city to use for overflow in the after hours and events. So we're kind of building our parking inventory each time we do a big project like this, which is good.
And then, is there any more questions on that parking? I didn't want to skip
No,
past
thank
that
you.
while we're on that subject. I don't know if I need to spend a lot of time on this. I kind of already mentioned some of the improvement. These are recommendations from Fair and Pierce as far as different turn lanes and kind of how to make Highland and Chambers, I think, work better. Here's a real cool image of how this fits in with here's the city center on the right with the climbing wall. You can see the Venture Hub down here. As you know, we're in the process of constructing this phase 2 of the common, and then back here the ice rink. This is the hotel that was modeled and superimposed into the development. This is a building on the left here that's somewhat entitled, but has yet to be built. It can't be built until this hotel gets built. primarily because we're going to use this spot for the staging of materials and whatnot to get over to this site. And there's a sequence of how this whole city center, this big puzzle kind of comes together. Here's another view. If you're looking above 33rd, looking north on the common, again, the hotel on the right-hand side with that little paseo that kind of comes up and the ground floor retail. And anyway, you can kind of see how that really kind of creates this space, kind of like a miniature Central Park. Maybe that's not the right way of framing it, but our own little space that kind of bleeds north across Chambers and into that phase two.
A proper town square,
There you are,
even with the
city
clock
center.
tower.
With a clock tower and a climbing wall and all the events that go in it. This is something that I just wanted to share with you that Beecher Walker put together. This is taking a real life image from this floor, looking straight out these windows of how that hotel will look.
Second floor windows?
Right here.
It's too bad you didn't pan a little more to the.
This is what it's like from the 6th floor, looking out those windows.
Well, and I'll note a few things. One is the image cut off the top of Grandeur, but obviously when you're on the 6th floor, you'd see it. But more importantly, because of the way this lays out and because of the restoration of the 1930s fine art building, which is becoming the gym, and the one-story Tres Hombres, you still have a gorgeous shot of Mount Olympus and the sight lines that are preserved. And even the way that this building is set back, it kind of opens up and frames that. So we'll have to have a 3D image looking from the common at Mount Olympus, and that's a view corridor that'll be preserved. So it kind of combines the best of mountain views, but also still having that urban feel like Gallivan Plaza or Rockefeller Center in our own little mini Millcreek way. So it'll be a cool thing.
Council, I think, well, I probably should go through these I can go through these conclusions. They're in your staff report. But essentially what I want to, I guess, to highlight them, there's a bunch of goals and policies that were envisioned early on in this process, but many years before I worked here, that some of you are deeply up to your eyeballs in formulating this master plan. And there's a bunch of goals and policies that were put together to try to create uses and spaces and activities and things that the community would benefit from. As we kind of comb through that plan and how things have evolved, we feel that it meets those goals and policies as what was intended. We feel like the design, with the exception of the step back, meets all the code requirements, and that's why the step back is the only exception that's being requested as part of this development proposal. To go over just a couple of others here, there will be some subsequent plats and other site plans that we can hash through some of the details, agreements, and whatever through John Brems and legal counsel, and working with the other partners and with their legal counsel to make sure we got a functional space. This will have access from Richmond, from the Common straight up to the Highland. If somebody wants to get an Uber or whatever have you, and they just walk straight up and not have to go out to Chambers and walk that way, they just go straight up the south side and connect there, or be dropped off and come in the same direction. We feel like the grades and everything are looking like they're going to work as they relate to the other properties, as well as the roads and what have you. And just overall, I think this project is, we as staff feel this project is right for the area. If you have any questions, I'm sure you have burning questions. If I can't answer, I might default to our architects, especially if it's design related. But
Thank you, Brad. Do any of you have questions for Brad?
No, I think I got mine answered. Thank you.
okay.
So the drive on the south side, coming off of Highland Drive, ends at the turn into the parking drive. It doesn't come all the way down to the Woonerf, correct?
It starts with
Shows
the
a tree
driveway.
there.
It starts.
Well, back. Well, no, go back again. Yeah, there. So that where they're walking, that's
So that's coming from the common.
mm-hmm.
You're walking up a sidewalk 8 to 10 feet or whatever it is, 6, 8, 10 feet wide. You'll go up and you'll be able to enter the parking structure.
So cars driving in, turning in off Highland Drive can't continue down to the
No,
Wooner.
no, they absolutely cannot. There'll be some bollards at the upper east end.
They'll continue down and either have to branch off into the new SLC strengthening surface parking lot, or to the parking garage,
And
but
is
then
there
it's just
going to be,
pedestrian.
is there anything that will be blocking off the SLC strength lot so people don't park there? Or is it going to be just signage or?
They'll have signage.
Have some signage. They'll
Maybe an arm.
I don't know if they'll install an arm. I mean, it's kind of up to them. It's private property.
Okay.
But they're welcome as private property to post signs that say SLC parking only, or you'll be towed, or whatever they need to do.
Whatever.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, would they be willing, or would how do I say this? Would we be willing to do parking enforcement for them since we are starting that up, or no?
All those
to
things are
manage it.
open.
Yes,
If
hired
they
us
want to
to.
contract with us to do it, or
No, that's how I'd think. Okay, thank you.
I will mention too, you have a transformer yard out there right now, immediately north of immediately east of the Adventure Hub. That's the
Which-
right one.
which you don't see it
Show
on
show
the-
where it is right now, Brad.
right now.
Right now, up there. And as we've met with Rocky Mountain Power, the best worst option is to slide it down there, and it needs to be twice as long, but the same width as the current transformer yard. But you're going from one transformer to 3 to handle the new electrical load of all the East Common development. And so as you park and walk down that paseo, this shows it well, right? So you have the vehicles that can come in from Highland Drive, and then do you see how you turn in either into the garage or down into the surface lot? But then it's just pedestrian sidewalk walking down. You will have a little bit of a protection with that transformer yard.
Yeah, a little
So you're not so when you're there sitting at the pizza house, you're not just gazing into the surface lot. You'll see a lovely walled transformer yard instead. But that adds to some of the quaintness and even protection from some of the chaos of 33rd. And we had to put it somewhere.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have maybe one more question. The open house that happened with the planning commission, were there community councils who were in attendance that gave any feedback at that open house?
Yes, you mean the public hearing
Yes,
with the
the
planning
public
commission? Because we did have an open house in addition to that. Yeah, there were some community council members that they all gave a written recommendation. There were 3 for 3 against it. So mostly because of the height. I believe it was probably the driver, the main issue. I don't know if I recall.
I'll add, in addition to that, the Planning Commission ended up unanimously recommending this, and I think you've heard Brad's thorough presentation tonight. One of the things is that the development of this, of which the city is one of the 3 partners, we're not asking for a height change.
Right.
The only
right.
change we're asking for is a little bit on some of the step backs, and we have to have that because candidly we're trying to put 8 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound bag here, but we don't want to, our code requires that the parking garage be wrapped, and which is good, right? We don't want to stare at a parking garage from the Common or from Highland Drive. And then also to pay for that and make it pencil, you got to have a hotel or some use, and then the condos on the other side. And so with a little bit of variance on that step back, we're able to make it work. And so that's the actual exception that we're asking for.
Right.
And so as the Planning Commission went through that, they realized, this isn't a question about, is this too high or not? That was decided years ago with CCAUS. This is about.
I realize that.
Yeah.
I realize that, and I
So just
see
adding that color commentary.
Yeah, and I realize that the planning commission also voted unanimously.
They were.
I could have clarified this when I asked, was what were those opposed based on opposition to the step back? Because this is the exception we're asking for.
I mean,
If it's the height, that's one thing. If it's the step back, it was more for my information.
Yeah,
I have a
no,
lot of information in front of me. I just wanted a little more information.
yeah, no,
about-
well, and in my mind, I'm combining some of the early on conversations we had with the community councils and without a whole lot of detail. I mean, it was kind of evolving early on. So initially they were kind of opposed to a lot of things, step back, height, use, you name it. As we kind of went through the process, by the time we got to the planning commission, I think it was really kind of the height was their primary issue.
Okay.
A lot of their issues about, for example, the articulation on Highland Drive were addressed, as Brad pointed out in those renderings, because, and this is where I'll say, having community councils involved, having those open houses, you have a better product in the end. I think our architects would agree to that because they were pushed and to work with the the hotel developer and the condo developer to come up with a better product than what was originally proposed. So the process is working, which is nice to see.
And we did have that open house, which is kind of a new, kind of an interim process, which we did have a lot of community council members show up to that, several, and voice some comments and did make some changes between initial, I mean, there's 5 or 6 different steps in trying to massage this and incorporate a lot of those. From what it started out with a list of items they wanted to narrowing it down to just the one or so that went to the planning commission. I think that's, to Mike's point, is your public outreach at its greatest.
That's exactly what I was asking. Thank you.
So
We didn't announce the next open house that when we talked about our meetings, but you've held 2 so far or 3,
We've held 2,
And-
and
and
the
you-
third one will be on Tuesday, the 7th.
and you're feeling like they're well supported and a good use of your time.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of people come. One of the more interesting phenomenon is that we're having people show up with not necessarily a project in mind, but they just want to come and visit.
See
and
what's going on.
Ask about a project, ask about a planning question that they have, which
Oh,
is
that's good.
one of the
Kind of like the Meet the Planners.
goals that we were trying to accomplish with this, right?
Good.
yeah, it is, Councilmember DeSiren, it is chat with a planner as well as talk about things that are on the agenda or anything on your mind that's appropriate.
Good qualifier.
Well, we'll do our best.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Brad?
Not anything too important, just, in the future, one thing to think about on the exposed part of the parking structure, we should think, maybe in a few years after it's finished, maybe we do a mural or something to brighten it up.
Let's
Or
see
you know
let's
what
see how
we
much
do?
we see of it.
Yes.
That's
We do a 3D art installation.
Let's see. I
We
think
could do that. There
the
were a couple of
elevations.
really good ones that were
I liked
submitted,
them.
and we're not moving forward with them, but they were really cool looking.
so to be continued on that. Okay, thank you, Brad. We appreciate that. And we'll look for, this was the first read. When do we anticipate the
April 13th.
April 13th?
The agreements, we got to sew a lot of things together,
So maybe not till the end of April?
maybe.
Depends on when the agreements are ready.
Best case scenario, April 13th. Worst case scenario, a meeting or 2 after that.
Okay.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
Right.
We've already covered items 4.1 and 4.2 in our work session. We've covered our reports.
Okay. Good job.
New items for subsequent consideration? I don't believe we have any. We've talked about our calendar, and there's still no need for a closed session. Okay. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Bev, seconded by Tom.
Second. Sorry,
All in
Bev, I didn't
favor?
hear you.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
And we've got a CRA meeting.
yes. So the city council
hold on.
meeting is adjourned, and in a few minutes, we will start our community
Thank you.
reinvestment agency meeting, followed by the community foundation meeting, which you're all welcome to stay to attend. I mean,
Why would
rush
you miss
out,
it?
but you are, it's evening. You're welcome to go.
Bye, Nancy. Bye, Rick.
Nancy, thank you for coming. Okay, so it is March 23rd, 2026, 8:23 PM. We are convening a meeting of the Community Reinvestment Agency of Millcreek. Do I need to say any more to, okay. So item number one, no, we do not do the Pledge of Allegiance, but thank you, Tom.
We do the
You
national
can,
anthem.
Tom
Tara.
is volunteering to sing a.
Tom does
Bless
the national
America
anthem
solo.
for us.
Oh, okay,
But I'll consider this
afterwards. Lisa, we will turn the time over to you for item number one.
Thank you. And the CRA is a separate entity from the city. The board needs to look at and approve the budget amendments for the CRA. So these are repeat slides from what was shown at the city council meeting. Again, the slides show budget amendments for the Millcreek Center CRA, which deal with mostly the bond transaction. Again, the budget was established prior to the transaction numbers being solidified, as that kind of happened, I think in July or August it closed. And so based on the actual bonding transactions, that's what this budget amendment is mostly contains. For Fund 202, which is the West Millcreek CRA, it's really a budget amendment for an increased amount of interest income, and the proposed budget is actually based on the year-to-date actual for that fund. Fund 205, which is the MedTech CRA, this budget amendment, you can see that the original budget and the amended budget is zeros because this CRA was just triggered with tax year 2025. So that decision was made. That decision was made after the budget was established, and we've received our first distribution from the MedTech CRA of tax increment, and so we're establishing a budget. All of the CRAs will have an amended budget again once we receive the year-end settlement from the county. And then Fund 220 is the CRA Aggregate Housing Fund, where we take that percentage for each of the CRAs, the percentage of their budget and their plan that is set aside, needs to be set aside for housing, and we take that out of the individual project funds and move it into this aggregate housing fund, just so that we have that to work with, as a whole. So any questions on the CRA budget amendments?
Any questions?
None.
No. And without any, I'll move that we open a public hearing to consider amending the fiscal year 25-26 budget.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Tom, seconded by Sylvia. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the public hearing is open. There is no one present in council chambers. Is there anyone online wishing to make a comment? Okay, public hearing, motion to close.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Tom, seconded by Sylvia. Public hearing, all in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. Anyone want to make a resolution?
Yeah, I motion to approve Resolution 2601, amending the Community Reinvestment Agency annual budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Nicole, seconded by Tom. Roll call.
Board Member Handy.
Aye.
Board Member Desirant.
Aye.
Board Member Catton.
Aye.
Board Member Weepy.
Aye.
Chair Jackson.
Aye. Okay, motion carries.
Mayor, I move that we approve the July 28, 2025 meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
Motion by Tom, seconded by Sylvia. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion to adjourn. Anybody? Anyone?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Second, yeah.
Motion by Nicole, seconded by Bev. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Give us a minute, and then we will start our second meeting. Our third meeting. Fourth meeting, really. We had a work meeting.
Yeah.
Ready? Okay, it is March 23rd, 2026. The time is 8:28 p.m. We are in the community forum, convening a meeting of the Millcreek Community Foundation. Item number 1 is a public hearing to consider amending the fiscal year 2025-26 budget, and we will turn the time over to Lisa Dudley to present.
Thank you. There's just a very small budget amendments worksheet to present for the foundation. In the revenue, we're recognizing an increased amount of ZAP grant that's been received, and also a budgetary use of fund balance to help offset the UTA passes for the Promise program. And this again was presented in the city, but presented here to the foundation board.
Okay.
Mayor, I move that we open a public hearing to consider amending the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget.
Second.
Motion by Tom, seconded by Nicole. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public hearing is open. No one is present in council chambers. Is there anyone online? No. Adamant no.
Mayor, I would move that we close the public hearing.
Okay. Motion by Tom.
Second.
Seconded by Bev. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Public hearing is closed. Is there a resolution?
Motion to approve Resolution 2602, amending the Millcreek Community Foundation annual budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026.
I second.
Motion by Nicole, seconded by Tom. Roll call.
Board Member Handy.
Aye.
Board Member DeSirant.
Aye.
Chair Jackson.
Aye.
Board Member Weepy.
Aye.
Board Member Catton.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Mayor, motion to approve the January 26th, 2026 special meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion by Tom, seconded by Nicole. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned.